Crocodiles have ruled rivers and wetlands for over 200 million years, long before humans walked the earth. With armored skin, ancient eyes, and jaws powerful enough to shatter bone, these living fossils have survived 5 mass extinctions and outlasted the dinosaurs. They are not echoes of the past. They are the past, still breathing, still watching, and still terrifyingly perfect at what they do. Silent, patient, unchanged. Their story is not just one of survival, it's one of dominance. But how did they come to endure when so many others vanished? The ancestors of today's crocodiles appeared in the late Triassic period, alongside early dinosaurs. Unlike the towering predators of their time, early crocodiliforms were agile, diverse, and highly adaptable. Some roamed the land on long legs. Others lived semi-aquatic lives, gliding through ancient swamps. Over millions of years, this lineage perfected its design, an evolutionary masterpiece of strength, stealth, and sensory precision. Today, 24 recognized species of crocodilian still roam our planet. Crocodiles, alligators, caimans, and the long-snouted gharial, though separated by continents and climates. They all share key traits: low-slung bodies designed for stealth, immense bite force, pressure-sensitive skin, and eyes and nostrils placed high on the head to remain above water during ambush. These are predators sculpted by time, not by chance. Their biology is as brutal as it is beautiful. Crocodiles possess one of the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom, up to 3,700 pounds per square inch in some species. Yet, their grip isn't just powerful, it's strategic. Once locked onto prey, they perform a death roll, spinning with violent precision to tear flesh and disorient their target. It's not rage, it's not aggression, it's instinct. But crocodiles are more than just muscle and reflex. They're deeply entwined with human history and myth. In ancient Egypt, the Nile crocodile was both feared and worshipped. The god Sobek, depicted with a crocodile's head, ruled over fertility, protection, and the power of the Nile itself. Temples were raised in his honor. Live crocodiles were kept within temple lakes, fed by priests, and honored with jewelry. In death, they were mummified, wrapped in linen, buried with reverence, and accompanied by offerings. In a land shaped by water, it made sense that the ruler of water, terrible and sacred, was the crocodile. In sub-Saharan Africa, crocodiles appear in origin myths and ancestral tales. They are said to carry the spirits of the dead across the river of life. In some cultures, to kill one without cause is to invite misfortune upon an entire village. Crocodile motifs appear in carvings, masks, and spiritual ceremonies, not just as warnings, but as reminders of balance, of death feeding life. goddesses like Ganga and Varuna. It represents chaos beneath the calm waters, the unpredictable force of nature, and the necessary power of destruction in the cycle of creation. Even in China and Southeast Asia, dragons may have originally been inspired by sightings of large crocodiles in ancient rivers and wetlands. Unlike other animals central to human history, horses, oxen, dogs, crocodiles have never been domesticated. They cannot be tamed, trained, or truly owned. Their refusal to yield made them not tools of civilization, but symbols that transcended it. They became nature's edge, always just beyond control, always demanding caution. And yet, they've influenced human behavior in practical ways too. For thousands of years, people living near crocodile habitats developed techniques to coexist, often through deep, respectful observation. Rafts were reinforced, fishing times were adjusted, bathing rituals were timed to avoid dusk and dawn, the crocodile's favorite hours. In some communities, spiritual leaders acted as interpreters of crocodile behavior, advising when it was safe to gather water, when to migrate, or when to offer ritual gifts to the river. In warfare, crocodiles became tools of terror. Captives and criminals were thrown into crocodile-infested rivers as public punishment. Stories spread of cursed swamps where armies vanished, devoured not by men, but by monsters. Even colonists and explorers in Africa, India, and the Americas feared these creatures more than the terrain itself. Crocodiles weren't just animals. They were obstacles, uncharted, untouchable, and relentless. But they weren't invincible. As human populations grew and cities spread, crocodile habitats began to shrink. Wetlands were drained, rivers were dammed, and although crocodiles were formidable, they were not immune to bullets, pollution, or habitat loss. By the 20th century, hunting crocodiles for leather and sport had pushed several species toward extinction. Populations of gharials plummeted. Chinese alligators nearly vanished. Even the massive saltwater crocodile, once feared throughout the Indo-Pacific, was shot on sight. But despite this, many crocodile species endured, and some even adapted. Urban crocodiles now haunt canals in Southeast Asia. In Australia, strict protections have led to remarkable recoveries. In parts of Africa, crocodiles are returning to areas where they had long disappeared. Still, the conflict remains. Crocodile attacks on humans do occur, and when they do, they draw fear and retaliation. And yet, if we're willing to see past fear, we might notice something else. The sheer intelligence of these ancient predators. Crocodiles exhibit surprising complexity. They communicate through vocalizations, grunts, bellows, and growls. Mothers guard nests with care and will carry hatchlings gently in their mouths. Some crocodiles use sticks balanced on their snouts to lure birds during nesting season. One of the few documented cases of dual use among reptiles. They bask in the sun, not just to warm themselves, digest food efficiently, to heal wounds, and to regulate mood and movement. Every movement is measured, every stillness calculated. To watch a crocodile is to witness patience in physical form. It doesn't waste energy. It doesn't seek attention. It simply waits, fully present, fully aware. And perhaps that is why the crocodile still captures us, why it has survived, not just in swamps and rivers, but in stories, religions, fears, and fascinations. It is ancient, yes, but it is also modern. It doesn't need to evolve to keep up with us. It only needs us to get too close. So next time, the water looks still, and the trees don't move, and the surface reflects the sky too perfectly. Remember what waits just beneath. Not a monster, not a myth, a crocodile watching. To understand crocodiles today, we must look beyond myth and muscle. These ancient reptiles no longer simply rule the waters of remote rivers or the pages of mythology. They now share an uneasy space with expanding cities, shrinking habitats, and global awareness. In the 20th century, the relationship between humans and crocodiles changed dramatically. With the rise of industrial-scale hunting, crocodiles were pushed to the brink in many regions. Not for defense, not for ritual, but for fashion. Crocodile skin became a luxury commodity. Bags, belts, shoes, and wallets were crafted from their tough, textured hides, turning these wild predators into status symbols for distant societies. Populations collapsed. The Chinese alligator, once found along the lower Yangtze River, now survives only in a handful of protected reserves. The gharial, with its slender snout and gentle disposition, nearly disappeared from the Indian subcontinent. Even the American crocodile, less aggressive than its saltwater cousin, became threatened in Florida, Central America, and the Caribbean. But extinction was not their destiny. Conservation efforts, spurred by science and shifting public opinion, began to change the tide. Protected areas were established. International trade in crocodile skins was regulated under CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Education programs helped local communities recognize the ecological value of crocodiles, not just as predators, but as ecosystem guardians. Where crocodiles thrive, so does biodiversity. They control fish populations, maintain wetland balance, and even create habitats for other species. When they dig burrows or trails through the mud, they unintentionally shape microhabitats, providing shelter for birds, fish, turtles, and frogs. In their silence, behavior alone supports entire food webs. When a female crocodile builds a nest from vegetation, the decomposing material generates heat to incubate her eggs. That rotting biomass attracts insects, which attract birds, which feed other predators. The nest becomes a biological engine, pulsing with life far beyond its initial purpose. Even in death, crocodiles return to the earth. Their remains feed scavengers. Their bones enrich the soil. Their absence is felt as deeply as their presence. Yet living alongside such predators is not easy. Every year, hundreds of human-crocodile conflicts occur, mostly in Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of Australia. People are injured, sometimes killed. In rural communities, where rivers are essential for bathing, washing, and fishing, avoiding crocodiles isn't always an option. The fear is real, and often so is the retaliation. That's why modern conservation goes beyond science. It must include culture, economics, and empathy. In places like northern Australia, indigenous knowledge is being integrated into wildlife management. Elders help track crocodile movements. Traditional burning practices reduce habitat overlap. In parts of India, community-led monitoring of gharial populations has led to successful hatchling releases. In Costa Rica, ecotourism around crocodile habitats now funds local schools and river patrols. Even captive breeding has played a role. In regulated farms, crocodiles are bred for leather in controlled environments, reducing the need for wild harvesting and generating income for conservation programs. It's an uneasy balance, using the animal to save it. But in a world of economic realities, sometimes survival requires compromise. Crocodiles are also gaining new recognition in science. For decades, they were dismissed as primitive, cold-blooded machines, but recent studies reveal surprising intelligence. Crocodiles exhibit long-term memory. They learn from past encounters. They even show signs of complex communication, bellowing to claim territory, hissing to warn, and vibrating their bodies to signal presence during mating. Mother crocodiles are fiercely protective. Unlike most reptiles, they guard their nests for weeks, responding to the squeaks of unhatched babies. When it's time, she carefully digs them out and gently transports them in her jaws to water. Some species continue guarding the young for weeks after hatching. They do not do this because they are sentimental. They do it because evolution has shaped them into effective parents. Where survival of the offspring ensures continuation of a powerful lineage, we are only just beginning to understand their social complexity. Crocodiles have been observed basking in groups, forming temporary alliances during feeding and recognizing specific individuals. In some captive settings, they even show preference for familiar humans, perhaps not affection, but a kind of trust. Still, they remain unpredictable, and that unpredictability keeps them in the liminal space between between animal and legend. In the human psyche, few creatures inspire the same mix of awe and fear. Crocodiles are a reminder that some things cannot be tamed. They appear in dreams and nightmares, often symbolizing hidden danger, emotional depth, or ancient instincts. To see one is to feel small, not because of size, but because of what it represents, the raw, unfiltered power of nature. Crocodiles have slithered into our art, our cinema, our poetry. In modern media, they appear as monsters, villains, or ancient guardians. Films portray them as horror's silent predator. Books turn them into metaphors for power, greed, or primal survival. And yet, when filmed in the wild, floating beneath a golden sunrise, eyes just above the surface, they seem less monstrous and more majestic. They are not animals to be cuddled. They are not companions, but their presence commands a unique kind of respect, one rooted in distance, mystery, and recognition of ancient power. As the climate shifts, so too does their world. Rising temperatures affect sex ratios in crocodile hatchlings, since the temperature of the nest determines whether the babies will be male or female. Sea level rise threatens coastal nesting grounds. Pollution impacts their health and reproductive success, and habitat destruction continues to fragment populations that were once vast and connected. Yet, even here, crocodiles endure. They have seen this planet change more than we ever will. They watch the sky darken with asteroid dust. They survived ice ages and firestorms. They were there when the continents were still tearing apart. And through it all, they remained unchanged, except for what needed to adapt. Perhaps that is the lesson they offer us. Not endless growth, not constant reinvention, but mastery of place, patience, balance with nature, a life shaped by necessity, not excess. In a world increasingly defined by speed, noise, and disruption, crocodiles are the guardians of stillness. They wait, they listen, they react only when it matters. They do not dominate their environment, they merge with it. And now, their future rests in our hands. Will we protect the rivers, mangroves, and wetlands they call home? Will we learn to coexist, to understand, to respect, not just out of fear, but out of wisdom? Or will they become echoes, trapped in stories, encased in museums, dissolved into myth? The choice for once is not theirs, it is ours. And while the crocodile waits, silent as always, we must decide, because no